The 2024 Civil Service Mains Exam started today with the general essay paper. And yet again, UPSC has given some very interesting questions this year. So, let's have a look at the questions of this year. The first question in section A is forest precede civilization and deserts follow them. That's a very nice statement, and it actually talks about the rise and fall of civilizations. Like forest precedes civilization, so we are brought to the picture of early civilizations which actually transformed from a primitive way of life to a peak. Then the next part of the statement, which says that deserts follow them, that shows about the decline of the civilizations. So all of a sudden, when you see this, you could think about all the great civilizations of the world, which actually started in very fertile places, but after a while, because of various reasons, geographical and man-made, many of them, got into perils. So that cyclical nature. Even we could say about the Indus Valley civilization, which was at the peak at one point, but slowly declined. So this particular question, you have to bring elements from environment as well as elements from history. So the analysis of the statement, you have to bring in examples from, as I said, from these two disciplines, and of course, you should bring examples from all over the world, because you could see that great civilizations like Mesopotamia and Babylonia, they are all, not in their prime now. They all kind of became deserts. But at one point of time, they were all very fertile kind of places. And earlier time, before human beings started their civilization, they were actually forests. So ultimately, this whole question is about the cyclical nature of rise and fall of civilizations. And if you are a person who is interested in this particular area, writers like Arnold Toynbee can be quoted here. But I don't say this is a very easy question, because you have to bring in elements from different disciplines. But it's actually a very interesting statement. Let's move on to the question number 2. The empires of the future will be the empires of the mind. So ultimately, the one who has intellectual upper hand, one who is having more control over human minds, they ultimately rule. That's the statement. So in the modern sense of the term, if you think about empire, we talk about business empires, we talk about the empires built by the internet, the communication devices and things like that. That can be connected to this particular statement, because people are not exactly waging war to conquer another country, but the ideas and other kind of things, and with the help of communication technology and things like that, they are trying to influence other countries. So that's the crux of this particular statement. So that mind thing you have to elaborate. Mind here you can think about is, the ideas and ideologies and things like that. So you have to bring in the role of media and communication devices and internet and all, and you have to construct your answer. So a lot of examples from the cyber world, and how this can be, how the soft power of certain countries are popular worldwide, like the K-pop and things like that. All that things you could bring as examples. But again, this not that easy topic, I would say, because you have to think a little bit, and this mind world has to be explored to its fullest content. That's question number 2 from section A. Let's move on to question number 3. There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. So, if I paraphrase this statement. This is like the journey is much more important than the destination. So, if you seek for happiness, that's actually not very easy, but the process of life, the continuity of life, that actually is the happiness. So, happiness is a state of mind, an attitude, a way of life rather than a destination. Again, now this topic is much more abstract and many philosophies from across the globe actually talks about it. Especially if you think the Zen Buddhism of Japan has lot of insightful stories regarding the importance of that pathway. And they talk about it's more important to have a meaningful life rather than having fixed goals. So, like that, from different philosophies, you have to bring examples to write this one. Again, a very abstract topic, but once you understand the meaning, you can try this. But the first two topics are, I think, slightly more concrete than this one. Now, let me check the fourth question. The doubter is a true man of science. Again, UPSC has asked a question from science. So, a person who doubts things is ultimately a man of science. So, there was this quote saying that if you question me, if you question my finding, that means you are actually a person of science. So, similarly, science is nothing but questioning. So, even if somebody says that this is it, one has to examine. Even our constitution talks about scientific temper in the fundamental duties. Similarly, with that premise, you can do a historical analysis of great scientists who brought change to the world, who refused to believe the existing norms and examined and checked the validity of certain things. So, this question, if you know if you are comfortable with the notion of science, or if you have some background of the research methodology and such kind of things with your optionals and all, this is a question which you can try. But to make a 1,000 words essay out of this, of course you need a bit more planning and all kinds of examples of people who doubted the existing system but questioned and improved humankind. So, out of these 4 questions, I would say that they are all actually a bit tricky in the sense they are not that difficult to understand, but all of them are actually, you need a little bit more planning to write. So, I can't exactly say that which one would be easy for you depending upon your background. But I still say the second question, the empires of the future, that's slightly much more easy than the rest, because you could talk about the early form of conquest and the later how this form of conquest and empire, the nature of empires has been changed. But still, I would say all 4 questions are tricky. Now, let's move on to section B. Section B, again, we have started with a question on social media. Social media is triggering fear of missing out among the youth and precipitating depression and loneliness. Now, that's an interesting question, because people are always, like many youngsters particularly, are always in social media, in Instagram and things like that, and they always wanted others to like them, like their pictures and give comments and share and things like that. And that continuous social recognition that craving for that continuous recognition is very much a issue. So, people actually living in a virtual world, some of them at least may not be having any real friends, but they will be having so many friends and followers in social media, and this every time, every single happening in their life, they will be, putting in the social media, craving for this attention. So, there are actually a lot of articles and studies in the public realm regarding this. You randomly reading things might have noted this. And in the internal security issues, we have studied the problems with the cyber crimes and things like that. So, the social media and its pitfalls are there for you to study. So, with that background and some interesting real life examples, how people, craving for this attention in social media, people who feel lonely when nobody likes their pictures, when they don't get enough comments and shares, that aspect you can blow it up. Actually, there are a lot of movies also came up with this theme, and we've seen a lot of social media influencers and celebrities committing even suicide. So, all these things you could bring together to write a good essay. So, this particular question, I would say, is very much easy for you to try, because we hear about this all the time in, newspapers and other media. The question number 2 of section B actually talks about nearly all men can stand adversity, but to test the character, give him power. Now, that's a paraphrase of the classical statements like power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Or, there are so many things which, so many quotes which actually talks about the impact of power on human beings. So, to actually test the character of a person, you have to give that person power. So, how that person uses power, whether he abuses his power, or whether he used that power to influence, whether he used that power to bring good changes. So, ultimately, since this is a question of power, you can compare leaders of different times, the dictators and democratic leaders, people who ultimately brought changes. So, ultimately, this is a question on leadership as well. So, you start with any good or bad example of somebody who utilized his power or who abused power to begin with. Then you can define the power, and using examples you can proceed. So, this is a statement again which is you could try it out, provided that you have a little bit of theoretical knowledge. Not too much, but this is very much a question which you can try. Question number 3 from section B is all ideas having large consequences are always simple. Few years before, UPSC has asked a similar kind of question, that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So, this talks about, how simple ideas can be very powerful. So, from the field of science or administration or any such examples from history, you could prove that this is the case. But to get examples for this particular topic is going to be a bit challenging. Very simple ideas, like maybe you could start with Gandhiji's talisman, like how you check whether your plan of action is right. So, Gandhiji's idea was very simple, like whether it helps the poorest of the poor. So, based on that, you could check whether your idea or path is good. That was Gandhiji's talisman. Maybe you could use it as a starter. Like that, you could say that maybe the Buddhas talked about ahimsa, or Jesus talked about love. So, they are all very simple ideas, but very profound and powerful ideas. So, Again, you have to understand the topic, try to build examples and proceed with your essay. Of course, it needs planning. Now, let me check the last question. So, the cost of being wrong is less than the cost of doing nothing. So, if you don't do a thing, that is actually bad. If you try and being wrong, that's always better. So, I mean, people can have a life where they don't do anything, so that they don't get any criticism or anything, but that's not a life worth. So, trying, and even if you are failing, that's actually the path to follow. So, there are many examples, maybe from the world of sports and other things which you can try for this one. So, again, you start with an example, then define the concept, then fill it with the examples from as diverse field as possible. That people who try and do something is always better than people who don't do anything. So, that's your question, last question. I would say the first two questions of section B are comparatively easier, the social media one and the next one. And the later two questions need a little bit more planning. But overall, I would say the CS questions are not that abstract. All the questions are attemptable, but certain questions you need a little bit more planning. And some questions like the social media one was actually the easiest among the all. So, I hope you all have made your pick wisely and done a good job. Thank you for watching this.